Hello, Good Omens fans, and happy holidays! Whatever you celebrate this time of year, or even if you don't celebrate any specific holiday, all of the folks over on our Discord server are here to lift your spirits during this time of year. This is our second annual holiday party, and we had so much fun, we just had to bring it out here to all of you. As with last year, there is fanfic reading, trivia, an art show and competition, and of course, caroling. Kamapuri made this wonderful holiday program, which is linked in the description. In addition, the video description contains links to the socials of all of the artists who contributed and shared their work, so you can check out all of those talented folks. This year, we recorded ourselves, so with this little intro out of the way, please just enjoy our Good Omens holiday party. Everybody, thanks for showing up. We have Blonde, the Red-Nosed Potato, Laura the Snowman, Merry Mandy, Camaflurry, and Snowdan. Thanks all for showing up. Okay, so please enjoy this carol while we wait for everyone to file on in.
On the first day of Christmas, Good Omens gave to me. This kiss lives in my mind rent-free. On the second day of Christmas, Good Omens gave to me 2 yellow eyes, and this kiss lives in my mind rent-free. On the third day of Christmas, Good Omens gave to me 3 cowrie shells, 2 yellow eyes, and this kiss lives in my mind rent-free. On the fourth day of Christmas, Good Omens gave to me 4 Eccles cakes, 3 cowrie shells, 2 yellow eyes, and this kiss lives in my mind rent-free. On the 5th day of Christmas, Good Omens gave to me an obsession with nightingales. 4 Eccles cakes, 3 cowrie shells, 2 yellow eyes, and this kiss lives in my mind rent-free. On the 6th day of Christmas, Good Omens gave to me 6 shots of espresso, an obsession with nightingales. 4 Eccles cakes, 3 cowrie shells, 2 yellow eyes, and this kiss lives in my mind rent-free. On the 7th day of Christmas, Good Omens gave to me an apology dance scored 7, 6 shots of espresso, an obsession with nightingales. 4 Eccles cakes, 3 cowrie shells, 2 yellow eyes, and this kiss lives in my mind rent-free. On the 8th day of Christmas, Good Omens gave to me 8 ox ribs, an apology dance scored 7, 6 shots of espresso, an obsession with nightingales. 4 Eccles cakes, 3 cowrie shells, 2 yellow eyes, and this kiss lives in my mind rent-free. On the 9th day of Christmas, Good Omens gave to me 9 best of Queen songs, 8 ox ribs, an apology dance scored 7, 6 shots of espresso, an obsession with nightingales. 4 Eccles cakes, 3 cowrie shells, 2 yellow eyes, and this kiss lives in my mind rent-free. On the 10th day of Christmas, Good Omens gave to me 10 merchants dancing, 9 best of Queen songs, 8 ox ribs, an apology dance for 7, 6 shots of espresso, an obsession with nightingales. 4 Eccles cakes, 3 cowrie shells, 2 yellow eyes, and this kiss lives in my mind rent-free. On the 11th day of Christmas, Good Omens gave to me 11 avocados, 10 merchants dancing, 9 best of Queen songs, 8 ox ribs, an apology dance scored 7, 6 shots of espresso, an obsession with nightingales. 4 Eccles cakes, 3 cowrie shells, 2 yellow eyes, and this kiss lives in my mind rent-free. On the 12th day of Christmas, Good Omens gave to me 12 travel sweets, 11 avocados, 10 merchants dancing, 9 best of Queen songs, 8 ox ribs, an apology dance scored 7, 6 shots of espresso, an obsession with nightingales. 4 Eccles cakes, 3 cowrie shells, 2 yellow yellow eyes, and this kiss lives in my mind rent-free.
Hoo-ha.
Okay.
Woo, ha, indeed. Okay, I hope you all enjoyed that. So everybody, welcome to the holiday party. I hope you're all excited to be here. We had a lot of fun organizing it, setting it up, and we are so excited. And I do want to thank all of the artists who submitted work for this party that we're going to be watching a little bit later. And also the advent calendar artists. That is an amazing thing. If you haven't been checking it out, you can go and see all the ones you've missed, as well as the ones coming up to starting today. And we'd really like to thank Carnival of Vanity and Riley. They had the idea for the advent calendar. All right, so the program we have for today is we're going to start with some fanfic reading and sing-along carols. The fan art competition and voting will be in the first half of the party. Trivia will be right in the middle. And then we'll announce the winner of the fan art competition and the art show. The full schedule and all of the lyrics for the carols are available in the party program, which Kama so kindly put together. It's a wonderful program. You should take a look. It's got a lot in there. And then we're going to close talking a little bit about Good Omens Got True Talents. That'll be at the very end of the show. Am I missing anything? Am I forgetting anything, Kama?
I think you got it all. I see that Vavumi has her hand up. Did you have something you wanted to say, Vavumi, to bring you up real quick? There you are. Hello.
Hello. I just wanted to say Merry Christmas, and I'm so happy to be here. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Thanks for coming up and saying that. Okay, I guess we're starting right in with another carol. We're going to do Crowley the Red-Haired Demon. So I hope you all enjoy this.
You know Furfur and Aster and Lager and Dagon, Shaxton and Usher and Eric and Satan. But do you recall the least evil demon of all? Crowley the red-haired demon was a pretty decent guy, but if you ever said so, he'd call it a big fat lie. Aziraphale the angel thought that Crowley was tip-top, although he had to hide it. They hung out in his bookshop. Then one day the Metatron came with a latte, tried to tempt Aziraphale. This is where we change the tale. That's right, we're gonna fix it, like the fanfic writers do. They can write happy endings, so we're gonna do that too. Crowley strode over quickly, knocked that cup across the room, kicked Metatron in the rear, yeeting his ass to the moon. Then Crowley said, I love you, and Aziraphale replied, dearest, I love you also, gazing deep into his eyes. Then they shared a charming kiss, long and full of love. Crowley got down on one knee, Angel, will you marry me? They bought a cozy cottage where they could live safe and sound, happily ever after, as in us and the Sundowns.
I also forgot to thank QTJ for the amazing art. We ran over to them and we're like, could you make some art in the next 10 days? And they did. They did all of that. So that was amazing. And silver for the photo editing. So that was amazing. I think it really made it special. I hope you all enjoyed that, Carol. We had a lot of fun making it. So next up, we have our Fireside fanfic reading, and Kama is going to take over here, introduce the stories and the readers. Enjoy the fanfic reading.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Sandaria. And I'm glad you're all enjoying the caroling. We had so much fun making those for you. So our readers for this first segment will be Madman D, Riley, and Catstein Books. I also just want to mention that we'll be making an AO3 collection open to all the fics in this party, so you can watch the fanfic channel after the party for info on that, so if you wrote a fic for this. So our first story will be Merry Christmas by Eric Is My Idol, and it will be read by Madman D.
Hello, everybody. I'm Mandy, and I'm going to be reading A Merry Christmas by Eric Is My Idol. Mistletoe hung from the ceiling all around A.Z. Fell & Co.'s bookshop. Fairy lights twinkled in the shadows, chasing darkness from every corner, and, by some miracle, it was snowing heavily outside. People passed by the windows cheerfully, some carrying last-minute shopping, some singing carols, and others just going for a leisurely Christmas walk. Most people had friends or family with them, and those that didn't were all tucked up nicely in warm coats and hats, with thick scarves around their necks to protect themselves from the icy wind. One man, however, did not. Anthony Crowley was walking down the street wearing nothing but his usual black jeans and a jacket. He didn't even look cold. The snow had collected somewhat on his shoulders and hair, but his face was still rosy, and his nose and ears perfectly normal colors, much to any onlooker's surprise. Under one arm, he carried a bottle of wine, his gift to Aziraphale. It wasn't nicely wrapped, and didn't look interesting apart from the tartan bow on one side, and the word angel scribbled next to it. As he crossed the street, without looking, as per the norm, and approached the bookshop, his steps got faster. He weaved between the people, pushed them out of the way to get to the door, which swung open upon his arrival, as if in greeting. He stepped inside and shook his hair like a dog, dislodging bits of snow that dropped silently to the floor and melted there. He admired the decor as he walked further into the shop, putting the wine down on Aziraphale's desk. The smell of oranges and cloves wafted from some unknown source, and the sound of singing could be heard from upstairs. Crowley smiled and glanced upwards. In an instant, the mistletoe was spotted. Crowley attempted to pay no attention, failed, and spent the rest of the walk up the stairs pondering, quite hopefully, on the purpose of such a decoration. When he arrived at the top of the stairs, the singing stopped, and a head emerged from behind the bookshelf. Then the rest of Aziraphale followed his head, and he suddenly stood exactly in front of Crowley, grinning from ear to ear and fiddling with his ring. Something was definitely up. "Hey, Angel," Crowley said. "Crowley," Aziraphale replied, sounding somewhat tense. "I wasn't expecting you for another hour." "I didn't realize you were expecting me at all," Crowley said. "I don't remember arranging anything." "My darling boy, there hasn't been a single Christmas in at least 50 years that you haven't found some excuse to be with me," Aziraphale responded, and started down the stairs. Crowley smiled at this remark. It was certainly true. They went downstairs, and, to Crowley's astonishment, the bookshelves had all been moved. In their place stood a large table covered with lovely food and a pretty Christmas tablecloth. Aziraphale turned back to Crowley, grinning again. "Merry Christmas!" he half shouted, and scurried over to one end of the table, where he sat down. Crowley made his way slowly to the other, still startled by the sheer amount of delicious-looking food on the table in front of him. He sat down and looked at his plate. On it was a small box wrapped in brown paper with his name on it. He looked over at the angel, who was watching him intensely, looking somewhat apprehensive. He nodded, and Crowley picked up the gift. With surprisingly shaky hands, he opened it. Inside was a small, square box. It was completely black and was tied shut with a small ribbon. Crowley's heart rate must have picked up tenfold. He glanced up at Aziraphale, who was still watching, with something in his eyes that Crowley couldn't quite determine. He looked back at the box, and, with one deep breath, he undid the ribbon and opened it. Inside, on the top, was a small piece of paper. It had a question mark on it. Crowley thought that he might not make it even to see what was underneath it if his heart kept pumping at this rate. Either way, he managed to remove the paper and did indeed almost pass out when he saw it. A ring, the most gorgeous ring he had ever seen. It wasn't adorned with much. It was just a silver band sculpted to look like a two-headed snake. But it meant so much more than Crowley could ever explain. Emotions ran through him like a turbulent river, and he stood up. So did Aziraphale, and they walked toward each other. They stopped with about a foot between them, a question hanging in the unspoken air. Neither of them needed to ask. Only Crowley needed to answer, and he did. With tears in his eyes and words failing him, he nodded. Then he nodded again and laughed a little. Something in Aziraphale shifted, and Crowley stepped forwards. Their eyes met, and somewhere to their side, fingers interlocked. With a voice cracked from happiness, Aziraphale spoke the only 2 words he needed to. Merry Christmas. The end.
Yeah, we should have warned you all. Definitely tissues. This is not going to be the only time. I promise you. There will be more needed. Yeah, I have mine ready. Yeah. Definitely tissues alerts. That was very heartwarming. Thank you, Madman, for reading, and thank you, Eric is my idol, for submitting that story. Our next story will be Holidays the Human Way by the River's Path, read in a lovely French accent by Riley.
Holidays the Human Way by the River's Path. The door whooshed open, sweeping snow into the warm kitchen. Aziraphale entered, accidentally knocking his toe on the threshold. He caught his footing, but the stumble sent brightly colored boxes and bags tumbling out of his arms on onto the nervy counter. A snap of fingers sounded from somewhere near the range, and the falling carton of glass ornaments reversed its floor-bound trajectory. It landed near a mixing bowl, missing a puddle of butter. Smiling, Aziraphale approaches his rescuer of fragile decorations. The door shut itself behind him. Thank you, my dear. Aziraphale planted a kiss on Crowley's cheek, erasing the look of exasperation and worry there. Unfortunately, he hadn't noticed the flower. Aziraphale pulled back, sputtering at the gritty texture on his lips. Here, let me. Crowley's voice was tender. He manifested a kitchen towel and cleaned Aziraphale's face. I take it your trip was a success? A muffled reply, and an amused eyebrow lift. The angel huffed and took the towel. Very much so. I discovered a lovely little shop in the village that had everything I needed. Aziraphale dusted the offending flower from Crowley's cheek. You've been busy while I was away. May I inquire as the contents of the oven? You may not. Crowley mirrored Aziraphale's disappointed pout. It's a surprise. Get started on your decorating, and I'll bring them in when they're done. Crowley reclaimed the towel and dropped it into the empty bowl. He helped Aziraphale out of his jacket and tossed it toward the cot rack by the door. It landed neatly on a wooden peg. Damn? Not bread, then? Biscuits? Aziraphale picked around Crowley's shoulder at the oven's glass door. No comment, detective. Crowley swept by a bag from the counter and set it in Aziraphale's hand. Go on. Another bag joined the first. There'll be hot cocoa, even. All right, Aziraphale relented. He scooped up more bags and carried them away. A moment later, there was cheerful orchestral music. Crowley fetched milk from the refrigerator to make the promised cocoa. Soon, Crowley carried a tray into the den. It wasn't a large room, comfortably furnished, with a sofa and armchair around the fireplace. Plants trailed across bookcase shelves. A modern stereo kept a gramophone company in a corner. Crowley recognized the tune of O Tannenbaum as he made space on the coffee table by scooting aside a mound of tangled ribbon. If Aziraphale realized Crowley was there, he didn't say. He stood facing a window, radiating frustration. Yesterday, at Aziraphale's request, Crowley had brought home the potted fig tree that now blocked most of the view. Aziraphale had been adamant about festooning it with twinkling lights and handcrafted ornaments the human way. It's our first year here. We shouldn't give our neighbor any reason to suspect we aren't what we appear to be. So Crowley had lugged it inside and set it up. No need to tell Aziraphale that it threatened the tree with immediate mulching if it shed any needles. I can't get it right. Aziraphale sounded tired. Crowley joined in, resting his hands on Aziraphale's shoulders. He had to admit that something was off. Instead of criticism, he offered comfort. Your surprise is really angel. How about a break? Aziraphale's answering smile justified the effort it had taken to bake something the hard way. Crowley led them to the sofa, clearing away packaging detritus so they could sit next to each other. The tray held what looked like a tall teapot and 2 winged mugs, one white and one black. Shall I be mother? Crowley winked, momentarily sounding like a certain nanny from years past. He poured the cocoa, pretending to ignore Aziraphale's delicate blush. He lifted the cover from a large plate, revealing small round pastries. Heckle cakes! Aziraphale gasped. No wonder the kitchen smelled scrumptious. He helped himself to one, closing his eyes in anticipation. When he took a slow bite, it was Crowley's turn to blush. Sons of enjoyment never came. Health. Aziraphale's eyes popped open. He dropped the pastry and reached for his mug. He winced as a gulp of cocoa washed down the bite. I think it's a little heavy on the salt. Crowley tasted the pastry for himself. It was inedible. Apparently, it confused the salt and the sugar. Embarrassed at his mistake, he stood to take away the ruined cakes. Wait, let me try another. Crowley noticed the downward swish of Aziraphale's hand as he chose a second. This bite was followed by a sigh of contentment. Delightful. I couldn't have made it better myself. Aziraphale patted the empty set. Crowley sat back down, content to go along with Aziraphale's little ruse. He sipped his drink and enjoyed listening to Aziraphale tell him about today's shopping adventure. At some point, the fireplace was lit and a nip of whiskey was added to the cocoa. By the end of the evening, the plate was empty. Aziraphale was the one to suggest retiring for the night and leaving the mess for morning. As Crowley lifted them, he squinted at the tree. String lights slithered into evenly spaced rings. Branches shifted to close gaps between ornaments. The star on top glowed with golden light. Satisfied that Aziraphale would know of the handsome set tree in the neighborhood, he followed his angel to bed. The end. Thank you everybody. And thank you for letting me reading something.
Thank you for reading. It was a very sweet and a funny story, and people enjoyed the French accent very much as well. So thank you to Riley for reading, and thank you to The River's Path for submitting that story. It was lovely. We have one more story before we move on to our next little surprise that we have for you. So our next story will be Keep Away from the Circle, You Stupid Demon by Catstein Books, read by Catstein Books.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Right. I apologize that I can't do accents, but I will do voices because you seem to love the voices so much. All right, this is Keep Away from the Circle, You Stupid Demon. Crowley, are you awake? Was he awake? What kind of a stupid question was that? Of course he was awake. How could anybody sleep while Aziraphale puttered around the bookshop, making all kinds of noise? Not that Crowley minded, really. He was only napping on the couch because it gave him an excuse to be here in the bookshop. He wasn't tired, and he obviously didn't need sleep. It was nice, though, just resting and listening to the angel muttering to himself while he moved things around. "Hmm," said Crowley. "Ah, you are awake. Excellent. I could use your expert eye." "My what?" Crowley cracked one eyelid. The bookshop was sparkling. "What are you doing? You decorating?" "Decking the halls, my dear boy, for the holidays." Crowley slithered upright, blinking until his eyes fully opened. "Angel, what have you done?" Sparkling, it turned out, was a dire understatement. Every window had been trimmed with pine boughs and fairy lights. Wreaths of holly and Barry's brightest stoplights adorned the bookshelves. Fake icicles, at least he hoped they were fake, hung from lamps, tables, and statues, catching the light and scattering it in all directions. The worst offender was a large Christmas tree, right by the entrance. Candles, battery operated, of course, glowed among its branches, illuminating scores of colored bulbs, plastic doodads, and popcorn strings. The light up star at the top outshone the Bentley's headlights. Crowley had to squint. "What is this?" he asked. "You don't decorate for Christmas." He cocked his head to one side. "Although, this is a new ploy to keep customers away. Well done. Can't even see the door from here." Aziraphale closed the distance between them in 2 rapid strides. Took hold of Crowley's wrist and tugged him toward the center of the bookshop. "That is precisely why I need you. I'm not at all certain the positioning of the decorations is correct. I need a second opinion." Angel released Crowley and made a sweeping gesture. "Well, what do you think? Take your time to look everything up and down." "I think you're up to something's what I think." Crowley stalked toward the Christmas tree and circled it slowly, scrutinizing the assortment of ornaments. Tiny teapots, naturally, glass bonbons, little crocheted angel and demon that were unmistakably himself and Aziraphale from the time of Job. That beard had been a choice, all right, but he'd made an excellent cobbler/midwife. Aziraphale had been bloody adorable, as always. Crowley had to cough to mask his gasp of delight when he spied a little mechanical nightingale nestled carefully among the branches. A key jutted from the bird's side. Crowley wound it with a flick of his fingers, and the nightingale began to sing. He scowled at the sweetness. Had Aziraphale done all this for him? He didn't think he'd said anything to imply that his festive spirit needed bolstering, though, to be fair, they'd gotten rather drunk last night, and he'd probably been spouting nonsense. It had been hard to put together a single coherent thought the moment Aziraphale had taken hold of his hand and twined their fingers together. They'd held hands for hours. Crowley could feel himself blushing just thinking about it. "Crowley, I didn't mean for you to go wandering about the place." Aziraphale sounded annoyed. Maybe the decorations weren't for Crowley then. Maybe the Wickwer Street Traders and Shopkeepers Association was having a holiday decoration contest. If the prize was cake or a gift to a fancy restaurant, the angel would pull out all the stops to win. Never mind that he could just miracle himself a cake at any time. He'd want to win the human way. "You have to view it from the correct vantage point," Aziraphale insisted, coming up behind Crowley. He put a hand on Crowley's back and urged him away from the Christmas tree, back toward the center of the room. Crowley turned around to face Aziraphale, crossing his arms and glowering. "Looks fine. Whole lot of holiday cheer." "If you could just back up a few steps for the whole effect." Aziraphale's lower lip puffed out in his well-honed pout. His eyes widened, lashes fluttering. "The absolute bastard." "Fine." Crowley took 2 steps back. He waved both arms at the display around him. "Still looks the same. Can you tell me what this is all about now?" Aziraphale made a back-up motion with his hands. "Just a touch further." Crowley complied. "And a little to the left. There, perfect. Now, what do you think?" Crowley stood in the exact center of the bookshop, right in the middle of the rug that covered the celestial portal imprinted on the floor. A shiver ran through him. The portal wasn't active, probably would never work again, in fact, but this spot had been the site of some pretty significant events in their life. Crowley glanced up, just in case someone was watching. Oh. Oh. A cheerful ball of green leaves and white berries hung from the ceiling. Mistletoe. a kissing ball, and he was standing directly beneath it. Crowley, Aziraphale sounded uncertain, and Crowley wasn't going to stand for that. Get over here, Angel. Aziraphale was at his side in an instant. Soft fingers caressed Crowley's cheek as their eyes met. You like it? Yeah, I do. I'm so glad. Aziraphale leaned in. He was just enough of a bastard to be worth kissing, so Crowley did. And
Everyone's very excited about that ending in the chat. That was very sweet. Thank you, Catstein Books. This is very satisfying because everyone gets to guess about where the story is going and then feel very good about when they've figured it out. Well done. Thank you to all of our readers and all of our authors. That was lovely. But for now, it's time for me to turn the floor back over to Cindaria for a bit of a surprise.
This is not a carol. This is an original song written by Carnival of Vanity with the lyrics by Laura S. And definitely have your Kleenex ready for this one. This song celebrates our community, and it's called Our World. All right, here we go, folks. Enjoy.
Light begins to dim as darkness grows. Winter winds have started to grow colder. You are not alone in all of this. Come rest your head on my shoulder. We have made a home and friendship here, a miracle of finding one another, strengthening the bonds day by day as we reach out to each other. So here's to our world, kindred spirits joined from far and wide. Here's to our world, where we're free to be on our side. Here's to our world, you are welcome simply as you are. Here's to our world, where you're home for the holidays and for all. We're gathered here to celebrate, comforted by friendships new and older, nurtured by support and care and grace, a shared affections grown bolder. Time will show us what the new year brings. Come what may, we'll face it all together. Tears and laughter born from joy and strife, we'll bear them in equal measure. So here's to our world, kindred spirits joined from far and wide. Here's to our world, where we're free to be on our side. Here's to our world, you are welcome simply as you are. Here's to our world, where you're home for the holidays and for always. Always at home.
Okay, I have to. That was beautiful. Thank you, Laura and Carney, for making us all cry. You okay, everybody? Yeah, I think we all need a moment. Okay. Or really, like that's like the fandom anthem for being together. That's awesome. All right, so now we're going to move into somehow the fan art competition. We have 4 entries this year. We'll show the names of the artists at the end. This first entry is called Space Skating, and it is a digital drawing, and it's adorable. And I'm gonna pester everybody up here when we're done with this. Very cute. Okay, entry number 2 is called An Angel for the Tree. This is Copic markers and pencils. Someone's gonna have to explain Copic markers to me. This third entry is called To the World at Christmas, and it is also a digital artwork. Very, very cute. And entry number 4 is called A Wintry Kiss, and it is a digital painting. So, yep, now it's time to cast your vote. 1, 2, 3, or 4. We have entry number 1 is Space Skating. Entry number 2 is An Angel for the Tree. Entry number 3 is To the World at Christmas. And entry number 4 is Wintry Kiss. So we'll go ahead and give you 90 seconds. Up here in chat, Madman, what did you think of the entries?
I think they're all beautiful. I love the variety that we get. Whenever we have a time when we ask for people to give, submissions and stuff, we always get a great variety of things. So,
Laura?
Always blown away by the talent in this fandom. It's incredible. Like,
I almost said Snowdayan. Dayan, any thoughts on the entries?
Yeah, they're all absolutely lovely. I do have my favorites, but of course I can't name them right now. But they are all extremely good, and it's always such a joy to see what the whole server creates.
Potato, do you have any thoughts?
I think they all look great, and as it's already been said, people are really talented in this server. So, I just want to say everyone is a winner, no matter what the poll eventually says. You're all a winner because the art you create is incredible.
I just know that at least some of these artists were also doing other projects at the same time, and it's always pretty amazing to me how much art that folks here are able to create and how amazing it all is.
So the winner will be announced later in the show after we see the art show, the people who submitted art not for the contest portion. So we'll announce the winner then, but voting is over. Thank you all, everyone who voted, and for all the art entries. So next up, so our next carol is called All Characters. It is sung to the tune of Carol of the Bells. It is an a cappella performance. The lyrics are by me, Laura, and the rest of the server mods. The singers are the chorusmen of the apocalypse, and it includes Blonde Cuddle Potato, Kamapuri, Carnival Vanity, Laura S., Joe Madge, Madman D, myself, and Vavumi. And we had, this was a huge project, and everybody performed at least one part. Many people performed multiple parts, and so this is pretty amazing. I really, really hope you enjoy it.
Good omening, for them we sing, all characters, Crowley for sure, Aziraphale and Muriel, their shepherd too, don't forget Newt, Beelzebub, Gabe as the pup, Citizen Joe, Bildad and Ropes, Satanic nuns, Nick Offerman, Serapiel and Wensleydale, Fuck Metatron, Eric's upon, Jemima Spot, zombies that rot, famine, pollution, wars, no solution, with death they ride, the end is nigh. Maggie, 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 Maggie is nice, Maggie, 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 Maggie is nice, Dalrymple's proud, Elspeth not count, this is Sandwich, Agnes the witch, Jim with the box, not even socks, Warlock is spoiled, Fur was spoiled, Esther's here too, smells just like poo, dead of the young, Josh keeps his tongue, Michael's a jerk, Justine's at work, Jax is in vogue, Pepper's a rogue, Crowley can right. Helen was rude, but he's a mood. Helen and Caviar, poor Mr. Brown, bookshop burned down, Bentley on fire, so ends this choir.
All right, that was a labor of love. Well over a month in production. And again, all of the carols will be up on my channel.
Next, we're handing it over to Madman for more fanfic reading.
Okay, hello. Sorry I had to log off and log back on again. My computer liked to freak out. So, yes, so we are going to go on to some more Fireside fanfic reading. I think this is probably my favorite part, both last year and this year. It's just really fun to see everybody come together for this. So, the first one will be Odain reading the Poinsettia plot by Mondwolf.
Everybody sit back and enjoy. The Poinsettia plot. Crowley didn't like Christmas. He probably should, considering how easy it had always been to cause trouble during the holiday season, with everyone feeling so stressed out from endless obligations. But he wasn't employed anymore. He didn't care about any shoulds, even less so than before. Instead, he indulged in his disdain, sneering at the over-the-top consumerism and the forced festive mood. And then there were the angels. Angels everywhere, displayed in shop windows, dangling from Christmas trees, smiling down from street decorations. It was bloody distracting. Crowley didn't care for such constant reminders when his thoughts already circled around one particular angel with irritating regularity. Speaking of said angel, Aziraphale loved Christmas. He couldn't have looked happier than when the first Christmas song began playing, and it was time to unpack his vast collection of Christmas decorations. Crowley had also learned to avoid mentioning Christmas food unless he wanted to hear about it for the next 3 hours straight. Not that Crowley minded seeing Aziraphale all excited and passionate. On the contrary, he enjoyed it. And that was the whole problem. Although they had grown closer since the failed apocalypse, he still dreaded going too fast. So Crowley had decided to meet all of Aziraphale's suggestions to celebrate the holidays together with outright cynicism, even when the disheartened look on Aziraphale's face had almost swayed him. This, of course, didn't keep Aziraphale from enjoying Christmas. When Crowley stepped into the bookshop in early December, the doorbell chimed out jingle bells. He frowned at the offending sound, then at Aziraphale, who came bustling over to greet him. "It's over the top, innit?" Crowley remarked, gesturing towards the doorbell. Aziraphale positively beamed. "Oh, Crowley, it's Christmas! There's no such thing as over the top." Crowley highly doubted that. Before he could make another snarky remark, Aziraphale announced, "I'll warm up some mulled wine," and disappeared into the kitchen. Left alone, Crowley's gaze wandered around the room, and he spotted an alarming amount of holiday kitsch, from snow globes to Christmas socks. But thankfully, not a single angel. Would have felt a little vain, really. After a while, Crowley's gaze settled on a lush poinsettia sitting on Aziraphale's desk. Curious, he sauntered over for closer inspection. Aziraphale wasn't exactly known for his green thumb, but this plant was thriving, its prominent leaves gleaming in shades of green and, remarkably, pale yellow. "Do you like it?" Crowley flinched at Aziraphale's voice behind him. "It's all right," Crowley mumbled. He was far from ready to abandon his cynicism in favor of anything resembling admiration. "I hoped it'd be one of the piece of decoration you wouldn't complain about," Aziraphale explained. "Apparently it's called Christmas star in some languages. Doesn't it look like a star to you?" Aziraphale's gaze lingered on Crowley, clearly expecting approval for combining Crowley's passion for stars with plants. "I thought you might appreciate it," he prompted. "Aren't poinsettias usually red?" Crowley asked instead of taking the bait. To his surprise, Aziraphale looked flustered. "Well, yes, but this one, it reminded me of you." Crowley frowned, glancing from the plant to Aziraphale and back again, convinced that anyone looking for a resemblance between himself and the poinsettia would be hard-pressed to find it. I'm not sure I understand. Oh, no, you're not fooling me, Aziraphale said with a laugh. You're trying to trick me into saying something nice about you, just so you can scold me afterwards. The confusion etched on Crowley's face must have reached alarming levels, as Aziraphale smiled and gave way to visible frustration. Your eyes, Crowley. Aziraphale sounded like he was halfway on his path to feeling embarrassed, but too exasperated to actually get there. Crowley blinked. His eyes? Had Aziraphale just implied there was something nice to be said about them? Crowley managed, entirely unhelpful, and adjusted his sunglasses. There was an uncomfortable silence. Mulled wine, Aziraphale mumbled before heading towards the kitchen. Or fleeing, rather. Crowley swallowed hard, raising a hand to his sunglasses. While he usually wore them to blend in, they had long served another purpose around Aziraphale. He suspected the way he looked at Aziraphale sometimes wasn't particularly demonic. It certainly didn't feel demonic, and he had assumed Aziraphale was more comfortable if Crowley hid this fact. But maybe Aziraphale was telling him that he didn't mind. Maybe this time Crowley wasn't going too fast. After a moment's hesitation, he slid the sunglasses off before sinking into his usual seat. When Aziraphale returned with 2 steaming mugs, Crowley kept his eyes averted, taking a large gulp of the too-sweet drink. But avoiding Aziraphale forever wasn't an option. Summoning his courage, he finally looked up. The joy lighting up Aziraphale's face was more than enough reward. Maybe, Aziraphale mused, his words slurring slightly after the second mug, you could take care of the poinsettia for me after Christmas? You know I'm terrible with plants. It'd be such a shame if it went to waste. Crowley shrugged, trying to muster his usual drawl. If you insist. Oh, I most certainly do. The smug satisfaction in Aziraphale's voice made Crowley pause. He studied Aziraphale's face and caught the glimmer of triumph in his eyes. Had this been the plan all along? Smuggling a floral Christmas star past Crowley's cynicism? Successfully forcing a present onto him by disguising it as a harmless favor? Sneaky angel. Crowley wanted to feel annoyed, he really did, but found himself impressed against his will. Aziraphale extended his mug, his smile impossibly gentle. Merry Christmas, Crowley. Crowley sighed, utterly defeated, and leaned forward to clink their mugs together. Merry Christmas, Angel. Maybe Crowley could get used to celebrating Christmas, at least when he wasn't confined to staring at angels from afar. It became far more bearable when he actually got to spend time with one. Thank you very much.
That was lovely. Thank you so much. And what a fun, silly story. Like, I just appreciate the playfulness there. Very easy to see it in my mind's eye. So, and you did the voices on point. That's great. Thank you so much. Next up, we have Lady Bracknell. Welcome back. And she'll be reading her own story called Christmas Eve on Henderson Creek, 1897. Take it away.
Hello. Thank you. Christmas Eve on Henderson Creek, 1897. They came upon the small cabin in a rough clearing, illuminated by the full moon in a cloudless sky. The deepest of winter, no sunlight would warm it until spring. They observed the massive woodpile. The skinny stovepipe wafted a wisp of smoke. A single window, heavily sealed, allowed no escaping light. They moved wordlessly to the door and pounded with thickly mittened fists. Anyone home? The lone resident stirred beneath all the holy woolen blankets the place possessed. He was ill with scurvy and had never before known its ravages. When the boys had decided to head up to Dawson City for the holiday and supplies, he willingly handed over his meager stash of gold dust to pool with that of his 3 comrades. They'd left him provisions, wished him a Merry Christmas, and promised to return, their exuberant voices fading down the trail. That was a week ago. He'd managed by rationing, hadn't the strength to haul wood, eaten the last crumbs that afternoon, drunk the last whiskey yesterday. The piss pot in the corner stank, but when the fire burned out, the cold would soon silence that. Burrowed under the blankets and keeping warm with his breath, he was just drifting off when he heard the muffled rapping upon the door. Who in the blazes can that be, he thought, surfacing to wakefulness. Recalling his Dickens, he chuckled in spite of himself. Maybe it's the ghost of Christmas present. Come in, he croaked. He peered through the darkness, lit dimly by the spluttering lamp. Two strangers entered, quickly shut the door against the cold, and stood surveying the dreariness. The leaner of the two wore dark spectacles. The stouter sported a heavy canvas duster. The former moved toward his cot and turned to the cupboard on the wall opposite, where chipped enameled cups stood alongside a few books. Producing a full bottle of Talisker Scotch, he filled a cup and remarked upon the worn copy of Milton's Paradise Lost. I know that one extraordinarily well, flashing a brilliant grin at the wan young man who reached for the cup and drained it. Meanwhile, the fairer stranger busied himself in the cramped space. The stove was suddenly ablaze and hot. He situated the single chair and two three-legged stools around it and began to pull food, fresh biscuits, bacon, gravy, and fruit, from a sack resting on the bare floor. The bespectacled one helped him to the chair, poured him another dram, along with one for himself and his partner, and raising his cup high, exclaimed, "Cheers." The one with vibrantly white hair smiled kindly. "Hello, I'm Fell, and this is Crowley. We are merchants out visiting a client when we lost our way and stumbled across your humble abode after moonrise." The invalid, warmed by the fire and drink, noticed the lamp burning brightly and fixed a quizzical look at Crowley's glasses. "Oh, Crowley suffers a sensitivity caused by a bout of snow blindness in the late fall," Bell explained. "Even lamplight pains him." Reassured, the solitary looked at them both and introduced himself. "I'm Jack London, lately of California, come to seek riches beyond belief," he declared sardonically. He proceeded to regale them with tales of his arduous journey through the Alaskan and Yukon wilderness, finding himself in this god-forsaken hellhole, skint and sick. His claim was worthless. "Shot my wad, it seems," he confessed, disheartened. Having heated the victuals and set the kettle to boiling, Fell served Jack a plateful and a nice cup of tea to wash it down. "I don't know what I'll do," he said between gulps, "but I can't leave until the thaw. I'll be on the first boat out. Still, I hate burdening the boys." "Well, Jack, all that glitters is not gold," invoked Fell. "You have excellent taste in books and the skills of a raconteur. Might you consider writing down your adventures? Speaking as a seller of rare books in London, there'd be a market for them. People love to read daring do, as long as they may do so in the comfort of their sitting rooms by a cozy fire. Wouldn't you agree, Crowley?" Nodding his head in assent, Crowley replenished Jack's cup, plugged the still full bottle, and placed it on the table. As he stood to go, he surreptitiously dropped a small, soft leather pouch atop Jack's books. "That should keep him till spring and beyond," he smiled to himself. He gathered their heavy coats, handed Fell his, preparing to depart. Glancing at the piss pot, he quietly snapped his fingers. "Well, buck up, Jack. Take better care of yourself and consider my suggestion," Fell encouraged. "And look us up in Soho when you come to London. I'll show you your first editions." Aziraphale and Crowley left a bewildered but revived Jack London sitting by the stove, enjoying his feast and warming libations. The stinging air outside the snug cabin would have smitten anyone else, but these two felt nothing but the warm glow from their endeavor. Setting their feet to the trail, Crowley turned to Aziraphale, still smiling with sublime satisfaction and delight in a job well done. "Where to now, Angel?"
Very nice. That was lovely. Great story and great job reading it. Thank you for sharing that with us. I appreciate, again, it kind of has like sort of atmosphere about it that's really warm and cozy. I felt like I was actually in the cabin there with them. So appreciate you sharing that with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then third, we have Blonde Cuddle Potato will be reading Friends of Snow, which is by Quote Stare.
Yes, thank you. Friends of Snow. The last few days it had been snowing in a way that made people think they were in Tadfield with its perfect weather for the time of year. The trees, streets, and houses were covered in a thick layer of almost blinding whiteness, muffling every sound. Crowley and Aziraphale had been at a local farmer's market, sampling cheese, wine, buying baked goods, and talking to the vendors. Well, it was mostly Aziraphale doing the tasting and talking. Crowley was content with watching him, as long as he was nursing some wine or other hot alcoholic drink. They had decided not to take the Bentley today, and were now walking back home through the streets, past doors and lit windows with holiday-themed decorations. A group of laughing and shouting kids were running past them while throwing snowballs at each other, shrieking as the cold lumps hit their intended targets. Seeing Aziraphale's eyes trail after the bunch and smiling at the blissfulness made Crowley feel all fuzzy and warm inside. His angel could marvel at the smallest facets of life, and Crowley loved him all the more for it. Then he spotted a robed angel figurine in one of the gardens, and a faintly mischievous smile spread onto his face. Aziraphale was too taken with delight to notice it. "Isn't it lovely to see how the beauty of the snow is bringing people such joy?" he exclaimed, but unable to stop the affection creeping into his voice. Aziraphale just took his hand and led him back to their path, making Crowley's lip turn upward ever so slightly. His cheeks were definitely just red from the cold air. As they walked the rest of the way home, Crowley got progressively colder. Oh, sorry, wrong page. They were now walking through a park, and at the next big undisturbed patch of snow, Crowley suddenly jumped away from Aziraphale and let himself fall backwards into it. Aziraphale stood there, perplexed as Crowley moved his outstretched limbs up and down in sweeping motions. "What on earth are you doing, dear fellow?" "I'm making you." "I beg your pardon?" Aziraphale looked more and more confused. "Well, sort of. The snow version." As if that cleared anything up. Aziraphale regarded him with a puzzled expression. Crowley got out of the snow again, gesturing at his creation. "It's a snow angel. Kids make them all the time, but now there's a tall one for you." Aziraphale's face shifted into a soft expression at this token of affection from his silly demon. "Did you make another one next to it?" Aziraphale asked after a moment, taking on an innocent look. "So we won't be alone." "Seriously, Angel? You just don't want to get your clothes wet." Crowley grinned, but got down into the snow next to the first one nevertheless. As he started sweeping his arms and legs, Aziraphale moved away and started picking things up from the ground. When Crowley was done, Aziraphale carefully stepped into the second imprint, crouching down. With Aziraphale's body blocking the view, Crowley didn't know what he was up to. He tried to inconspicuously brush off some snow from his back, and failed spectacularly. "Now it's a snow angel and a snow demon," Aziraphale proudly exclaimed when he got back up and stood next to Crowley again. There were now 2 pine cones and a few twigs pressed into the snow where the face was supposed to be, making up his ever-present sunglasses. "Nobody's gonna know what that's supposed to be," Crowley said mockingly, but unable to stop the affection creeping into his voice. Aziraphale just took his hand and led him back to their path, making Crowley's lips turn upward ever so slightly. His cheeks were definitely just red from the cold air. As they walked the rest of the way home, Crowley got progressively colder, shivering in his wet clothes. By the time they reached the cottage, Crowley was so preoccupied with keeping his teeth from chattering violently, he had all but forgotten that he could have just miracled himself dry. He barged inside, not bothering with the keys, and flung his shoes to the side. "Why did we even go outside today? I'm frozen solid." His coat was indeed crunching a little as he slipped it off. "Well, I doubt plunging yourself into the wet snow did anything to help preserve your warmth." Crowley was too cold to come up with a snappy reply, so he settled for a glare in Aziraphale's direction. The angel was unfazed. "Go and get yourself into something dry, while I heat us up some of that exquisite cider." Aziraphale gave him a peck on the cheek and left for the kitchen, while Crowley headed for the bedroom closet. He discovered that he liked doing some things the human way. The slow process was sort of grounding, or even meditative at some times, and it could make him feel like he achieved something. even if that something was just getting out of his wet clothes, hanging them to dry, and putting on some clean ones. When he emerged from the bedroom, Aziraphale had prepared 2 glasses with hot cider and a plate with pastries on the end table next to the sofa. The gramophone was playing one of his old classical records, providing a gentle atmosphere. Putting his hands on Aziraphale's shoulders, Crowley kissed the fluffy white curls and breathed in the familiar scent of his angel. Aziraphale leaned his head back on the sofa so they could see each other's faces. Never would they get tired of each other's eyes. The indescribable shifting colors of the angels, and the intensity and expressiveness of the demons. They could get lost just staring at each other. Crowley gave Aziraphale a gentle kiss on the forehead before stepping around the sofa and snuggling up next to him. Aziraphale was so soft and radiated a warmth that Crowley wanted to bask in as closely as possible. Aziraphale draped Crowley in a warm tartan blanket, and they settled in for the night, sipping cider, talking about everything and nothing in the way they'd gotten used to over the millennia. Eventually, Aziraphale would get out a book and read it out loud to Crowley, who would drift off into a peaceful slumber with his head resting in Aziraphale's lap. The end. Thank you to Quotester for writing this super cute fic, and thank you for letting me read it. I loved it.
Yes, thank you for reading it. It was very cute fic, and I like just these playful little moments. I love when, the different types of stories we get to see and everything from these little, incidents for a couple hours and then the whole longer stories and everything is great. So thank you again for reading.
Oh, hey, Potato, your camera's working. Huzzah.
Hey,
Yeah.
can anyone see me now?
Yep, we can see you. Love your hat too. I do.
Thanks.
All right, so next up we have another carol. This is by Madman D, and it's O Little Town of Edinburgh, sung to the tune of O Little Town of Bethlehem, another a cappella.
O little town of Edinburgh, what secrets doth ye hold? You captured hearts of angels and demons of old. The jukebox changed the record, it now plays every day. Yes, every song turns into this, to the barkeep's dismay. The mysteries of your past have wizened angels' hearts, and what began a tragedy may play a crucial part. 'Twas fear and desperation that drove poor Elspeth bold. Their family, their only love, was starving, freezing cold. So 'neath the cover of darkness they crept towards the grave. Desperate times, oh desperate days, but who'll be left to save? Oh, little town of secrets, humanity stays engaged. Each generation drives on, yet thy streets hardly aged.
Beautifully sung by Madman D. So thank you. And also thank you, Kama, for putting together the video for her. That was really nice. Let's see. Next up, we have more fanfic reading. This is the last little block we have, and I believe Kamapuri will be hosting this section. Thank you, Kamapuri. Take it away.
That's right. Oh, that's such a sweet song. All right, who's ready for more story time? We have one more. Yay! One more block of story time. And our first story will be A Christmas Gift by Very Blueberry, read by Odan.
Okay, everybody get cozy again. A Christmas gift. Good morning, Mr. Crowley, Muriel said with a bright smile as they wandered in from the back room of the bookshop. They hadn't expected company, since the bookshop was closed for the holidays, but the little bell above the door had alerted them to the demon's entrance. Merry Christmas! Yeah, merry whatever, Crowley grumbled as he pulled off his coat and threw it over the desk. He placed a bag down on the nearest bookshelf and flopped onto the sofa. The demon gestured to the seat across from him before he pulled out his phone and started tapping away at it. Muriel took the offered seat and waited patiently for Crowley to finish what he was working on. A minute later, Crowley looked up from his phone and announced, Nina and Max are on their way. Should be a minute. On their way where? Muriel asked, oblivious. Crowley groaned. Here, Muriel. They're coming here. Oh, I thought no one went shopping on holidays. The demon sighed and pinched the bridge of his nose. Not to shop, to visit. You know, for Christmas. You'll understand when they get here. Well, Crowley seemed certain of what he was saying, and that was enough for Muriel to feel certain too. Wonderful. Can I get anything for you while you wait? A cup of tea or one of those fancy bottles from the back room? Yeah, sure. Grab me one of the red-looking bottles. 5 minutes later, Muriel returned triumphant with a bottle of the red liquid the demon liked to drink. Maggie and Nina were already inside, shedding their winter coats and gloves. Muriel, Maggie said with a warm smile, Merry Christmas. Nina gave the angel a nod and greeted them the same way. Merry Christmas, Muriel replied. They wandered over to Crowley and handed him the bottle while he miracled himself and the humans a glass each. They all settled into a spot on the sofa or a nearby chair as they exchanged pleasantries about their week. At a lull in the conversation, Maggie nudged Nina's shoulder and whispered something in her ear. Putting her wine glass down, Nina wandered back towards the coat rack and picked up the bag they had left when they entered. She took it right to the angel and handed it over. Merry Christmas. This is from both of us, Nina said with a quick nod to Maggie. Oh, Muriel took the offered bag hesitantly. What's this? Maggie chimed in to explain. We got you a Christmas gift. A Christmas gift? Oh dear, you don't know what it is, do you? Maggie asked. Crowley waved a hand at Maggie and leaned towards the angel. You see, humans, he gestured at the pair across from him, they like to give gifts to other people, especially on holidays. It's a way to promote commercialism and greed. It's a kind gesture to show someone you care about them, Maggie said. She gave Crowley a reproachful look as the demon smirked back. Muriel stared at the bag for a moment. So, what do I do with it? You open it and whatever's inside is yours to keep, Maggie said. With some extra guidance, Muriel opened the gift bag, took out the box inside and peeled off the wrapping paper. What's a fragrance wax melter? Muriel asked, reading off the box. They turned the package over and examined the picture. It looked like some kind of small ceramic bowl with a large base. Well, it makes the air smell good, Maggie explained. We know the bookshop has a no-candle policy, so we chose one that would be fire-safe and easy for you to use. It's electric. You just plug the cord into the wall socket by the lamp over there, and it heats up the wax to release the fragrance. Muriel was confused, but no less astonished by human ingenuity. While they looked closer at the picture on the box, Crowley reached over to the shelf and found the bag he put there earlier. He shoved it into Muriel's hands and mumbled what sounded like, Merry Christmas. Muriel's smile brightened further. Opening the gift, they pulled out a large plastic tray filled with dozens of little cubes. Oh, how lovely! Look at all the different colors! That's the wax, the demon said as he reached over to the tray, peeling off the lid and popping out one of the red cubes. He brought it to his nose and sniffed. Strawberry, he said with a nod and passed it back to Muriel, waving a hand for them to try it as well. The angel hesitated for a moment before bringing the waxy cube to their nose and sniffing. The fruity fragrance was strong but surprisingly quite appealing. They inhaled again and smiled brightly. How wonderful! Yeah? Crowley asked with a crooked smile as he watched them fondly. Try this beige one next, he said, handing over another one. He must have taken it off the tray when they weren't paying attention, but they didn't mind. Muriel took a deep sniff and declared loudly, "Oh, I much prefer this one." "Apple pie," Crowley said, grinning. "Good choice." The next hour was spent sampling all the different fragrances and picking their favorites. Each scent was associated with some form of food that the humans happily tried to explain, while Crowley found pictures of each type of food on his phone to show Muriel. The next day, the bookshop smelled like apple pie. The day after that, like cinnamon rolls. And the next, like a hot cup of coffee. Muriel, who had never eaten food before and, as an angel, never needed to, found themselves completely content being surrounded by this aromatic buffet. And from then on, the bookshop and Earth felt a little bit more like home. Listening.
Always makes the stories feel a little bit more real when you get the senses with that, like the smell in there, doesn't it? That was very sweet. Thank you for reading that story, Odan, and to Very Blueberry for contributing it. Let's see, the next story that we have will be Of Bickering and Bake Off by Jackson, read by Madman.
I actually appreciate the suggestion to get cozy because I didn't realize how cold it was until I actually got a blanket. And so that's good. I didn't realize I needed it. Thank you. Okay. So I'm reading Of Bickering and Bake Off by Jackson. They had nothing to do that evening. It wasn't book club day, gardening club day, or going to the pub and to be social day. Ergo, there was nothing to do. Plus, the evenings were dark and increasingly icy, and a particular cold-blooded being had absolutely no desire to go out in it. That still left them with the conundrum of how to spend their evening. Crowley opted for the television. Obviously, they had one. He used it for Golden Girls, James Bond, and a myriad of silly films with far too many flashy cars going far too fast. Luckily, he mostly indulged while Aziraphale was out, in the study or reading Jane Austen in the bath. That evening, however, Zero was quite content to stay in the sitting room. He had a new book. Several chapters in, his partner still hadn't made a choice. He liked to think that he was patient, but even he had limits. "Do pick something, dear boy." Crowley, who'd evidently forgotten that he was there, jumped and glanced over. "Hmm? Pick something." "There's nothing to pick." With great theatricality, Aziraphale got up from his armchair and leant over back of the settee. He snatched the remote and tried to change the channel. Angel, you press up. No, up. It's the button on the other side, with the arrow. We're on streaming. There are no channels." "I managed a bookshop for over 200 years. I'm sure I can handle a television." A while later, Aziraphale had squeezed in beside Crowley on the sofa. He'd just gotten the hang of swiping and selecting. "Where are those silly American films?" "You're on the English streaming service. They won't be in the front page." "It's not a page, though. It's a screen." He nearly whined, though Crowley would argue he actually whined. "Look, if you just scroll down a little bit." "You do it then, if you're so well-versed in technology." He dropped the remote into Crowley's lap. The redhead contorted his extraordinarily lanky limbs into a position that would better suit scrolling, and muttered something about "so well-versed me, practically Bill Bleeding Gates." "Halt! What was that top left one? The one with the Victoria sponge?" Great British Bake Off." Sometimes, way back in the day, when Crowley was creating stars, he'd get a feeling that he'd created something that would spiral far out of his control and contort all of time and space with no way of reining it back in. Or, in this case, he'd let Zero watch Bake Off. The angel was entranced by it. He'd move his overflowing antique knitting basket from the radio to the TV, and Crowley had barely had a look in since. Well, he had, but that was irrelevant. He surreptitiously ambled over to the sofa and casually sat on the arm of the sofa. Without looking, he tried to slide the remote from the pile of wool and squishy cushions. "None of that," Zero said, and swatted his hand away. "This Welshman is trying to peel an onion with a potato peeler." That's not right. That's for potatoes." "Precisely. Shh." Well, fine. He didn't need a television or his partner to entertain him. He was perfectly capable of entertaining himself. So capable, in fact, that he went to bed at 2 p.m. After a proper day out of town several miles away, Crowley was hoping for a nice, relaxing evening with alcohol. Alcohol and maybe Zira reading Pride and Prejudice to him until they fell asleep on the sofa and woke up with splitting headaches. Perfect plan. This plan was derailed the second he unlocked the cottage door. "Wha?" said Crowley unintelligently as a cream-colored blur whizzed past him. "I think there's some of the nice whiskey left in the pantry. Be a good chap and pour me a glass. I would do it myself, but someone's absolutely butchering a lemon meringue pie." This is it, Crowley thought as he sauntered into the pantry. I did 2 Armageddons and ran away to the South Downs, only for my best friend to leave me for TV people and their cream puffs. Still, it wasn't all bad. Crowley had some houseplants to water anyway. He was a practitioner of tipsy gardening, great for the soul, less great for the liver. He paced up and down the living room with a glass of whiskey in one hand and a plant mister in the other. "Thou shalt not wilt, thou shalt not droop, thou shalt not dry out. What were you put on this earth for if all you're going to do is grow away from the sun?" In between the tirades Zira had long since learned to zone out. He caught snippets of Bake Off. Started baking it, had a breakdown, bon appetit. He hadn't expected a show about coffee cake and pork pies to end up quite so emotional, but you never could predict what humans would do. He carried on terrorizing the houseplants. One of the many compromises they'd had to make when moving in together was clutter. In the end, they'd partitioned the cottage. Crowley had the greenhouse, bedroom, and the living room cupboard. Zira had the study, the kitchen, and everything else. He thought the little knickknacks, piles of books, and knitting projects scattered around made the place look that much cozier. Crowley disagreed. So now he was reorganizing the records, the pantry, and anything he could get away with. "Angel, have you seen my label maker?" "A bookshelf." Zira swallowed the shortbread he'd been snacking on. "I know it's somewhere on the baking shelf. I used it to label all the flour." "Why in somebody's name would you need to label flour?" "Because, dear boy, unless you want a cakey bread or a breadish cake, you have to keep them separate." The former Serpent of Eden decided that the baking shelf, which now encompassed most of the pantry and some of the meticulously organized cupboards, was beyond him. Usually, reorganizing his records was a calming activity. A little bit of peace, quiet, and alphabetical order, or order by artist, or by year of release. He was going to crack the code to perfect organization one of these days, he was sure. So what if he kept looking at the TV? Worst background noise out there. At least this one had some fainting, polite snark, and an Irish lady who was woefully misunderstanding gelatin. It had been a long day. Also, a nice day. Visiting some friends, a quick trip to the Ritz for old time's sake. They'd accidentally miracled 2 nightingales at the same time, and last they checked, they were happily wooing each other. And a leisurely drive home to the tune of ooh, lover boy. Frankly, if Aziraphale thought one more time about how much things had changed and how lucky they'd both been, he was likely to get misty-eyed. What better way to cure a maudlin episode than with some delightful baking? However, something distinctly unusual was happening. He'd only been halfway through that season, he was sure. Resume watching the finale. He definitely hadn't seen the finale. Hang on. Dear boy, am I right in saying that the red line means watched? He said in a dangerously casual tone. Yep. Why? Anthony J. Crowley, have you been watching Bake Off without me? Not as such. It's good background noise while I'm in the greenhouse. How on earth have I never seen you drag a television out there? Crowley, slightly smugly, pointed at that infernal glass tablet. Aziraphale had never gotten the hang of it. He'd stick to the typewriter or playing word games on Crowley's phone. iPad, Angel. You can take it anywhere. What better way to spend a cold winter evening than with a cozy TV show? That's not how Isabella made it. Angel, she literally made hers with beef. Surely you can't be offended by dragon fruit. The end.
Lovely, lovely. That was very funny. Much appreciation in the chat. Thank you for that story, Jackson, and thank you for reading Madman. So on that note, our next story, which is also our final story, is Cranberry Mistletoe by Blonde Cuddle Potato, read by Blonde Cuddle Potato. Take it away.
Thank you. So this story is written based on true events, sort of. So enjoy. Cranberry Mistletoe. Staring at the screen with his reading glasses on, Aziraphale stared at the screen that Crowley was currently showing him, eyes wide with disbelief. "And this is about us?" he asked incredulously. Crowley nodded, almost losing his balance in the process. He was perched on the edge of the desk where Aziraphale was seated, holding his phone out for the angel so he could study his recently discovered obsession, Sandaria's discussion server. "And this Discord thing is to communicate?" the angel asked, still trying to wrap his head around the whole discovery. Apparently there were people who knew about them, yet Aziraphale couldn't find out for the life of him who could be. He met a lot of humans over the years, but this was just strange. "Yep, apparently there's a book and a whole TV show about us. These people make fan art and write about us. And let me tell you, that stuff gets spicy," Crowley cackled, and Aziraphale gasped. "Whatever are you talking about, Crowley?" Crowley leaned closer and smirked. "See for yourself." He handed over the phone, and Aziraphale reluctantly took the device from him. He started scrolling, and soon he was gasping, crying out in shock, covering his eyes. "This is simply ridiculous, Crowley. I'm not that... and you... we're not like that," he said with dismay and handed the phone back. Crowley huffed, biting his lip to keep the inappropriate remark to himself. "It's not all bad. For one, here's me as a snake and you as a pigeon." Aziraphale gaped at him before quickly grabbing the phone again. "Oh, well, I guess that's quite sweet," he said after studying the image. "But you look much more adorable than this snake. Remember the little hat I made you? My, you were so charming." Crowley hissed before looking back at the screen. "Oh, and people got married." Aziraphale now made a noise of delight. "Oh, how wonderful! We bring people together," he answered with a blinding smile. Crowley's heart skipped a beat, wanting to make another remark, but again, biting his tongue. He'd gotten good at that recently. If only he could kiss Aziraphale and celebrate Christmas with him like these people portrayed them doing it. He quickly shook the thought away, focusing on his phone again. "Although I believe some of them made a competition out of it. There's a whole lore out there, and the drama is hilarious." Aziraphale gave him an unimpressed stare, making him cackle again. "Truly, Crowley, why don't you do something useful? For example, setting up the Christmas tree and the decorations." Crowley groaned, throwing his head back. "Why are you always like this?" He grabbed his phone again. "I'm going to try and marry one of them." Aziraphale shook his head. "And you call these people ridiculous? I'll have you know I'm eligible for marriage. Besides, throwing in a few temptations here and there makes hell get off my back. Who knows? Maybe those two who are pining for one another can finally admit it and move on." Aziraphale simply tutted and got out of his chair, disappearing to start on the Christmas tree. "How is your marriage?" Aziraphale asked later that night while humming a Christmas melody. He was currently standing on the spiraling stairs, fixing the strings of lights that he needed to decorate it with. Crowley, who had been endlessly scrolling on his phone, looked up. "Those two are fighting over who gets to have me. Such a typical human thing to do." Aziraphale chuckled. "They better. After all, they get the best spouse this universe has to offer." Crowley's phone fell on the floor, his frozen hands unable to avoid it. Aziraphale looked up from his fight with the unruly string, and that's when he realized what had come out of his mouth. I mean, oh bugger, I should really get on with these Christmas lights. Why don't you, Put up the door decorations. Yes, good plan. He quickly ran up the stairs while taking the string with him, leaving a bright red Crowley behind. Dear me, that was quite the effort, Aziraphale commented, wiping his forehead. He had taken off his coat and his sleeves were rolled up to his elbows. Crowley, who had stripped down to his shirt, grunted something while he cleared out the last of the empty boxes. I still don't get why you always have to go along with these traditions. Because it's nice, Aziraphale defended himself, and Crowley rolled his eyes. It's a waste of time. The angel huffed and inspected the door, decorated with lights, pine tree branches, and cranberry. Miracle to stay green and healthy throughout the season. It gave the perfect winter ambience. Crowley had done his best, and the angel smiled with satisfaction. I must thank you for helping me out. It would have taken me ages to decorate the whole shop. It's so kind of you, Aziraphale said, smiling at the demon. Crowley came to stand next to him, looking outside of the window to watch the snow falling down. Shut up, Crowley replied with no heat. Aziraphale smiled and looked up, his eyes widening when his eyes fell upon something he hadn't expected. Oh, you wily serpent, he huffed with a fond smile. Crowley, who had been fixated on the snow, turned around with a questioning look, but suddenly there was a hand on the side of his face, and soft lips were pressed on his. He made a high-pitched noise, and suddenly the lips were gone again. I can't break traditions, you know that, Aziraphale whispered, clearly just as blown away as he was. He slowly stepped back, turning around to probably hide somewhere, but Crowley finally caught up with the situation, and he grabbed his wrist. Pulling him back, he wrapped an arm around his back. You call that a kiss? Without hesitation, he dipped the angel and kissed him again. The passion between them suddenly flared up, and Aziraphale made a muffled noise of surprise before he wrapped his arms around Crowley's neck. Eventually they came back up again, breaking the kiss, but not their warm embrace. Good Lord, take me out on a date first, Aziraphale got out breathlessly. Crowley chuckled, pressing a kiss on his forehead. I would love to. The end.
And I think that was a perfect way to close our fanfic reading. Thank you, Blonde. That was lovely. And we all got to be in a story. So fun. So thank you again to all of our readers and all of our authors. It was lovely to hear all of those stories. Now I am going to hand you back over to Sandaria for the fan art show.
Those were so much fun. I think I started crying from laughing so hard on the British Bake Off one, but all of those were funny and sweet and the definition of cozy, I think, basically. So yeah, thank you so much, everybody. So we are going to do the fan art show, the non-competitive part. And I do appreciate everyone who submitted art for this. I know it was a really busy season. We had so many art projects going on with the advent calendar and the parody songs. A lot of people were doing art for a lot of projects. Sorry, our first entry is called Christmas Market Fun Time by Evie. This is wax pastels on paper. Very cute. The third entry is Scarf Sharing by Miniatures Gremlin. This is digital art. That's cute. I would love that as a sticker or a pin. Super cute. Our fourth entry is A Place of Warmth by Lonely Eyes. This is done with alcohol markers, which again, someone's going to educate me on some of this art. I don't know what that is, but it's really beautiful. It looks a little bit like watercolor. The fifth entry is The Reason for the Season in Hell by Bugger All This Bible. Digital art. That is funny. We don't get enough art of Haster and Liggers. That's amazing. Our final entry here is This What I Think It Is by Ariko. Ariko? Am I saying your name right? I apologize if I'm mispronouncing. Crowley's got a pine needle in his hand and he is threatening that Christmas tree. Do not drop needles. So thank you everybody for your entries. Those were all amazing and fun. And now it's time to reveal the competition winner. So if you remember earlier, we had the 4. Hopefully you were in time to vote for that. So So here, if you remember, here are the entries. We had entry number 1 was Space Skating, and we didn't have the names yet because we didn't want to have accidental bias. Space Skating by Misty Creations. Number 2 was An Angel for the Tree by Mary. Number 3 was To the World at Christmas by Brigitte P. And number 4 was Wintry Kiss by Carnival of Vanity. And the winner is, drumroll, I need to have a drum or something. Carnival of Vanity! Congratulations! That is a beautiful piece of artwork. Honestly, worthy of framing. Gorgeous. Congrats. And thank you again, everyone who entered. All right, next up, we have our 5th and final carol for this particular event. Last but certainly not least, we have Crowley the Demon, which is not the same as Crowley the Red-Haired Demon. And if you missed the carols, I will play these later and they will be on the channel, so...
Crowley the Demon was an angel long ago, with a pair of wings and a halo too, so much joy he'd often show. Crowley the Demon now has lots of angst and pain. He's cared so much it became a crutch, and his joy began to wane. There must have been some laudanum in that big tall glass he drank, for when he placed it to his lips he grew tall, but first he shrank. Crowley the Demon has such a tortured soul, with a heart of gold and a spirit bold, he just can't escape his role. Thumpity thump thump, thumpity thump thump, look at those two go. Thumpity thump thump, thumpity thump thump, no one has to know. Aziraphale the angel was as good as he could be. He's collected books and thwarted crooks and enjoys a cup of tea. Aziraphale the angel knew that God was wrong that day. Said the kids are new, I promise you, and he felt he'd gone astray. By the sea they sat all day discussing what went down. Aziraphale was scared as hell. Crowley told him, don't you frown. Crowley the Demon tried to tell Aziraphale. He said, don't you fret, you sure can bet that isn't how I fell. Thumpity thump thump, thumpity thump thump, look at those two go. Thumpity thump thump, thumpity thump thump, no one has to know.
All right, folks. That one was from last year. I've had all of these carols stuck in my head for about a month now, and I'm not tired of them yet. Yep, we had a lot of fun making these. And I hope you all had fun writing the fanfic and creating the fan art, and also just showing up and watching all of the awesome talent this fandom does have. Yep, thank you, everybody. So I'm going to give everybody a quick chance. Kama, we'll go kind of around a little circle, have everybody say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays and goodbye, and then we'll carol everybody out. Gamma, you go first.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Thanks for coming and joining us. Thanks for all of your creativity. The team effort putting on an event like this, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. We had a lot of fun putting this together, just like last year. And, I really appreciate you all participating and providing us stuff that we can share back with you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, for participating, for being here, for making this an amazing evening or day, whichever time zone you're in. And have great holiday season and Merry Christmas to everybody. And I just love that you're all here.
If you weren't in the holiday spirit before this, I really hope you are now. Thank you all so much for being here with us today. Delighted to be a part of this fandom and this server and have a little second home here. And you make it all possible. Love you guys.
Yes, thank you everyone for participating and joining. I had a lot of fun. This was my first event that I actually joined to help with, and it was really fun. I wish you all a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year with a lot of love and happiness and health. And I'm so grateful that I stumbled upon the server because it has made my life so much better. And I love you all.
Yep, it really is. It's just the whole server is a group effort. So thank you everybody so much. This was tons of fun. We'll do it again next year, I'm sure. So happy holidays, everyone. And we'll see you soon.